So just like goal setting theory had management by objective, I would say that job enrichment and job core characteristics model kind of has their own implementation package, total quality management (TQM). Now, this does involve other methods too, and it's kind of a broad way of, again, kind of trying to instigate these across an organization. So, total quality management is improving quality of organizations' products and services from the top down. It's an organizational strategy committed to improving customer satisfaction and develops techniques to carefully manage output quality. The main reason I kind of package it under job enrichment theory is that a lot of it is focusing on empowering individuals within their own jobs to be able to take care of quality management issues within the jobs that they're doing. So characteristics of TQM, it's organizational wide. It has to have support from the top. It is a cultural change. So the culture of the organization is moving towards quality as job one, for instance. It partners with customers and suppliers and really focuses on building external relationships. And everyone in the organization is considered a customer. And the idea behind that is that the organization is wanting to do quality management of customer service with its own employees, making sure its employees are being treated at high quality, and empowering those employees to then extend that further support and respect to the actual customers of the organization, the external customers. Characteristics include a reduced cycle time. Techniques range in scope, a kind of concept of do it right the first time, basically setting an organizational value that respects everyone and is designed specifically to fit the organization's existing culture. And reduced cycle time basically means quicker communication and more open communication within the organization and less things that require communication. So again, where it's about empowering someone. So think about if you have a problem with an organization. I recently had an example of this where I ordered something from an organization. It arrived mail order, and there was a problem with it. And it wasn't a typical problem. It was a pretty specific problem. And I wasn't necessarily, well, I was definitely wanting it replaced, but I also wanted to make sure that the organization was aware of the defect in their product. So I sent an email. Well, the email took 24 hours approximately before I got an automatic response, but 24 hours later, I got an email back asking what was the specific question. Okay, so I reiterated my question, included some images, and said, here's the problem. I'd like to know how to proceed. Well, again, about another half day passed till I got a response back. I'm going to have to check with my manager. Another half day passed, and I got a second email now from someone else asking again for details and pictures, which again I sent. And finally, after about 4 days of emails, I was finally on the phone with the manager's manager to talk about the actual problem, at which point I was told I actually needed to talk to the quality floor manager who produces the products, and they set up a call. Now, again, at any point, I could have just basically stopped this process and said, will you send me a replacement? And they would have said yes. But I really wanted the company to know that there was a problem in their products. Because it was a company that I actually have shopped with before and have some customer loyalty to. This was an example of a company that quite clearly does not have total quality management because no one was empowered to be able to really just deal with a situation that was non-normal. And that's what I mean by reduced cycle time. I was in a typical moving it down, trying desperately from organization part to organization part, from employee to employee, to find out who I actually needed to talk to, because only one person in that entire organization had any authority to change the problem or to deal with that problem. So total quality management and organizational development does have very similar attitudes and values, and this is good. So I would say TQM is much closer to an OD intervention than, for example, when we were talking about management by objectives. TQM may not be part of an OD program. It can be a standalone program and assumes the problems and solutions are related to quality. And that the way to deal with them is to try to increase communication and increase autonomy in everyone's jobs and job descriptions. OD practitioners guard against being quality experts. So if an OD practitioner is involved in total quality management, you need to make sure that you're not taking on the role of measuring quality. You're supposed to be taking on the role of empowering others to do so. OD programs may include TQM as one of the techniques. So basically what I'm saying in this slide is TQM can occur outside of OD. TQM can be a tool OD uses, or TQM can be actively a part of a broader OD intervention and involve OD consultants in the process of TQM. So one of the big components of TQM is self-managed work teams, autonomous groups whose members decide how to handle their tasks, composed of people from different parts of the organization with different skills. Teams may be permanent and temporary. So this can be everything from a truly interdependent permanent task team, which has a lot of autonomy to determine how to complete their tasks, all the way down to more like work teams, groups of people that are not necessarily independent but are doing similar jobs that allows them to talk together about problems. It's about empowering as much decision making into the people that are actually making the decisions and are interfacing with the problems directly. Characteristics of self-managed work teams. A successful organization that has self-managed work teams should have fewer management levels. There should be less status symbols involved. The functional boundaries that members can identify within their teams. Teams number usually between 15 to 5, and team orders materials and equipment. So let's just kind of break this apart of these kind of characteristics. So the first one is that if you actually empower teams to make decisions, it also means you should need less managers and less levels of managers. Because teams are supposed to be working together to come up with common solutions, there should be less symbols of status. In other words, there should be less people that have titles such as managers or team leaders. The functional boundaries members should be able to identify between their work teams and other work teams. They should also identify which work teams they work well with and need to work with, and other teams they may not have as much contact with. Number of teams depends on how interdependent those tasks are, so they can be as small as generally 5. Usually you're not going to find teams smaller than that, and that's usually going to be the more interdependent, highly task-focused teams. And they can be as large up to 15. The less interdependent they are, the larger that team can be, because that team is going to be more of a resource base for people doing similar work. And the team should have some ability to order their own materials and equipment. They should have their own budgets that they get to control to some degree to be able to empower them to make decisions on how they do their work. Teams should have a sense of vision, so the team itself should understand its role in the organization and should understand why it exists as a team and what its purpose is. Partnership between that team and management. There is still going to be a management component, possibly even a management team above the work teams, but there should be a clear understanding of when those members are going to need to communicate with management, what management's role is, and also a recognition of the boundary that there are certain control and certain decision making that is not going to require management intervention. The more diversity there is within each work team, different skill sets, different viewpoints, you're usually going to result in better decision making, especially if that decision making is being done democratically with open discussion. Information needs to be encouraged to be openly shared within those teams to maximize their success at making good decisions. And the members do need to be knowledgeable in their areas of expertise. So reward systems and total quality management, which again is building also on this idea of creating teams, it needs to be based on team performance. And ideally, again, the more interdependent the actual team's tasks, the more likely that reward system will be easy to implement based on total team performance. Rewards may be given to teams, and teams then distribute how to distribute them. So for instance, if you have just a work team, 15 people that do a similar job, but it's not independent, possibly a reward could be given to the entire team, and it's up to the team to determine how to divide it. So the bonus is for the team, and then the team determines who gets higher or lower amounts of that bonus. If that is the plan, managers do need to make sure that they're monitoring this process to make sure it's not becoming kind of a political, only friends of certain people are getting these rewards. Teams small enough to measure individual performance to be reflected in his or her paycheck of everyone else on the team. So again, we have to kind of think about how are we actually getting this information of rewards to individual teams? Does it get reflected in individual paychecks? Does the paycheck of everyone else in the team reflect what other people are getting? What information is being shared? Caution in using self-managed teams may not be appropriate for all tasks, for all people, in all contexts. Managers and leaders may be vague about their roles, and this often occurs, especially at the start of trying to create kind of a total quality management environment where you're empowering teams to make decisions. Managers and leaders often will feel as if they're being kind of cut out of their traditional job roles. They're moving from being decision makers to being supportive of others making decisions, and that can be a difficulty. And lack of training can cause teams to fail. So we're actually asking teams to take on decision making, to maybe do some budgeting, to come up with systems for dividing rewards within the organization. It is an error to assume that the skills necessary to do those tasks exist in that team. That might be something that requires additional training.